Well, welcome everybody. Very nice to be reconnecting with you today. My name is Paul Fletcher, and this is the podcast, The Healing Source. I'm very happy to be sharing with you today another in this series, and this series is number 3. The first of this series was Tao Healing for the physical body. Then we went to Tao Healing for the emotional body. That was the last series. And then this series is Tao Healing for the mental body, including mindsets. This week, we're focusing on Tao Healing approach to negative thinking. Raise your hand if you think negatively more than you would probably enjoy. Raise both hands if you find yourself thinking negative a bit incessantly at times, where it just starts bombarding you and there doesn't appear to be an off switch, right? We're going to talk today about where is the roots of that? How does that originate? Why is that in your field and your vibration? And what you can do to employ Tao healing approaches and methods to transform this type of negative information. I encourage you also to come back for the next few episodes. Next week, I will be doing the podcast for the Tao healing approach to your ego. That's going to be fun, huh? So I'm looking forward to serving you there as well. Looks like one or two of my live streams might not be working, but that's okay. If they don't work, we'll just go live on all the other opportunities. But thank you everyone who has joined me today. So what is Tao healing and what is negative thinking? Tao healing is another word for source healing. Source healing recognizes that you, I, and everyone and everything came from the same source. Because we originated from this same source, we can be healed by that source. There are not a huge amount of certified Tao healers on the planet today. A certified Tao healers went through years and years of training. They have paid for that higher level of education and the authorities and abilities to offer Tao healing. Now, there is an entire lifetime of wisdom around the wisdom of the Tao and the approach that a person who understands source and alignment to source, how they might bring themselves to any particular life event, or in this case, in today's subject matter, negative thinking. There's a teaching, Da Dao Zhi, that my teacher shares very often. My teacher's name, for those of you that are new, is Dr. and Master Zhi Gang Sha. And he shares Da Dao Zhi. The big way is extremely simple. So what does that mean in the context of today's subject matter? What it means is, if we break everything down, our problems, our sufferings, our emotions, our health issues, doesn't matter what it is. We can break it down to very simple understandings of how did it get there, what's its purpose for being there, and how can we transform it and remove it from our frequency and vibration. Tao wisdom provides for us a very simple understanding that all of the teachings, and especially the healings, are based upon. And that is that every success in our life, every failure in our life, success in a business, failure in a relationship, success in a relationship, failure in a business, doesn't matter what it is. Every success and every failure in life is because of either the positive or negative messages and information that we hold at the level of our soul. How does that positive and negative information get there? Well, obviously, it's there because of our own thoughts, words, and actions from this lifetime, from all of our lifetimes. Even we are impacted by our ancestors' positive and negative thoughts, words, and actions. So then, with that as a simple baseline, the big way is extremely simple. Da Da Jin. How do we apply that foundational wisdom to something as complex and difficult as incessant negative thinking? Or maybe it's not incessant, but it's constant or doesn't seem to improve. And no matter how hard you try to get ahead of something, that negative thinking is still there, right? So, how do we apply this very simple understanding? The big way is extremely simple. Well, the first part of that is recognizing how did it get there? It got there because in this and all lifetimes, you and or your ancestors created negative thinking upon others. The big way is extremely simple. Have you ever thought something negative about somebody walking down the street, right? Oh my goodness, look at them. But, it was just inside your mind, so it didn't really matter, right? Or you spoke something negative. For me, every day, something whips out of my mouth, right? It's literally out before I can even catch it and roll it back up and put it back in there. And this is something that as humans, we have to be self-responsible for. We have to first and foremost control our thoughts because thoughts create. How do they create for you and me? They create in our field, they create in our vibration. Every thought you have, absolutely, unequivocally, unquestionably affects you. It affects your moment now, it affects tomorrow, and it will affect your future. All you have to do is have one thought that's either positive or negative and see how it affects your now. And the predominancy of our thoughts is what creates our tomorrows. So are you being conscientious of your positive and or negative thoughts? I'm going to divert a little bit here. I'm going to go down the rabbit hole a little bit, okay? There's an entire school of thinking, and you don't have to accept this at all. This is just something that I allow myself to consider so that I can reach the highest levels of awakening. It's just something for you to consider as well if it resonates with you, okay? What if this world that you and I live on, what if there's somebody, for example, in a tribe in South America that doesn't have internet, doesn't have any of these things, doesn't know about the world conditions, the war, the political, the this and the that, about the genders, all of that stuff that is so predominant in our communications today, that tends to have a significant amount of negativity associated with it, like over the top amounts negativity. And those people who live in the tribes and the forests of, let's say, South America, it could be anywhere, we'll just use that as an example, they don't know anything about it. Nothing. In their world, they have an entirely different set of concepts and thinking. Their connection to the source could be entirely different. If their world and our world, yours and mine, are in the same planet, how come their stress is different than my stress? Because they don't access the same things that we access. Their stress could be they didn't catch a rabbit that day. So how are they going to feed their family? My stress might be, is the world going to blow up today based on the news drilling me 20 times a day about something that's going to happen somewhere in the world? So in almost every case, what I want you to consider is that our ability to be self-responsible is exactly that. It is ours. We could choose to disconnect and go live with a remote tribe in some place in another country. And if they have no internet, they have no cell phones, then you would have a significantly different level of stress. My teacher, more recently, has been talking about a Buddhist monk. I don't know how many years old he is, but he's quite old. And he's quite famous in the East. Apparently, he has about 1 million or so followers. And he has no connection to the outside world. He talks to people, but he has no digital devices, never watches the news, won't even let it in his sphere. And he is one of the most powerful speakers on the planet, one of the most powerful people. People listen to him. What is the deeper message behind it? He is self-responsible for what enters his personal vibration. This is the message that I want you to hear. Where did the negative thinking that's on your field in this moment or tomorrow, where did it come from? Where did it come from? Two places. It came from your own thoughts, words, and actions that you expressed towards others. In this lifetime or another lifetime, if you have created negativity upon another, then that is in your environment. It doesn't just go out and not come back. It's like a boomerang. The second place that negative thoughts come from, negative thinking, is from external sources, as just explained. The people in, New Guinea or wherever they're at in the middle of nowhere who don't have the stressors that we have in this modern world, they don't have those kinds of thinking processes. So it comes from two sources. We can control both of those, but will we? I find myself picking up this mind-numbing device called the phone when I really don't need to. It's an automatic. Why? Because my mind says I want something to do. So I pick it up, I look at it, and I put it back down. Because I'm responsible for what I allow into my field. Do I really want to put on TikTok? Do I really want to put on YouTube? Sometimes it's quite negative what comes through whatever channel you or I choose to look at. We have to be responsible for what enters our environment. This is how you can absolutely start minimizing the negativity in your field. I promise you that if you start being responsible for anything external, now I can hear some of you asking right now, well, what about my husband, or what about my a spouse, or what about another person? Okay, and let me give you a mirror. This is you going, it's not me. I'm not responsible. What do I do about them? That's what you're doing when you ask that question. It's not their problem. It's not their problem. If they are being negative towards you, the higher wisdom would say, have you been negative towards them in a different lifetime? Let's do a forgiveness practice and minimize that. If you do everything you can and you protect yourself and you shield yourself from that negativity and it still is rampant towards you, did you do everything you could? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you need to physically remove yourself from that kind of negativity if that's what is highest and best for you. You always need to make the choices that are highest and best for your mental, emotional environment. So there are things from outside of us that ultimately we have complete control over what we allow into our field. Complete control. You might not want to admit it because we have an addiction to listening to that field or that soap opera or that whatever it is that has negativity associated with it. But we could disconnect from it. That's one of the first things you can and probably should do. The second thing is what's coming from the inside. And we want to be cognizant of it. Pay very close attention to whatever negativity is coming up for you, especially the mind chatter, right? Really listen to it. Do not buy into it for a moment, but do pay attention to it. What is this saying? What is it saying? Maybe it's saying, why do you even try? Maybe it's saying, that'll never work. Maybe it's saying, you just don't have what it takes for this, right? Whatever it is, don't buy into it, but do observe it. In the Tao wisdom, everything has a soul. Everything, including thoughts, have a soul. Everything has a soul because everything comes from the source. So when you start to recognize that everything has a soul, and then you move to the second secret, which is the purpose of every soul is to serve, and that means a thought is trying to serve you. Whether it is positive or negative, it is trying to serve you. Now, we all want more positive thoughts. I'll take more of those. I believe that's trying to serve me. But how is a negative thought trying to serve me? First of all, how did that negative thought get there? You allowed it from the outside, or it was already in your field? And since we're working now on the internal negative thoughts, the ones that are already in our field, how did it get there? Our own thoughts, words, and actions. Okay, let's say I buy into that, which of course I do, but you might be new for the first time. Let's imagine that you say, okay, well, if I brought those to me, how the heck do I get them off my field? How do I get them off my soul, out of my field? What's the purpose of every soul? To serve. So when a thought consistently comes to you and it bothers you and it goes deeper and it bothers you and it doesn't go away, no matter how many times you ignore it, what's it trying to do? It's trying to serve you. Well, how's it trying to serve me? It's saying, please be awake and aware that you have offered this same kind of negative conditions upon others. You might have said to others, you're never going to amount to anything. You might have said to others, why even try? You're never going to succeed. You might have said to others, that's not going to work. You might have said those things that are rambling in your head to others. And it doesn't matter if you remember it or not. That's entirely irrelevant here. What matters is that you see that everything is trying to serve you to become a higher, more enlightened being of love and light. We, you and I, and all humanity are in this together. We're not going to be able to elevate the entirety of humanity until we start taking responsibility for what's happening in our environment and not pointing the fingers outside of us. What, so many people get caught up in their agenda of LBGT or I like green women only or whatever it is. I'm not picking any given thing, but a lot of people, they get really stuck on any given agenda, and that's where they raise their fist and da 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 da. Maybe it's a political thing. Maybe it's Democrats are right and Republicans are wrong. Maybe it's Republicans are right and Democrats are wrong. Anytime we fixate on anything that creates a negative environment for us, it is not serving us. When we have a negative thought, acknowledge it, observe it. Thank you. That's the next comment. Thank you. This beloved negative thought. I now realize you are trying to serve me. I'm so grateful. Thank you. You're trying to teach me that I have created this kind of incessant thinking upon others, whether I remember it or not. So now I am going to consciously say, dear all souls, in this and all time, if I or my ancestors have offered these kinds of negative thoughts to you, if I or my ancestors have ever said those exact words, right? Repeat them. Or anything that has caused you to think these kinds of words, then I deeply and sincerely apologize. I'm very clear now how unpleasant it is. I've not enjoyed constantly having this negativity in my field, and it must have been very unpleasant for you. I sincerely, sincerely apologize. So this is how simple it can actually be. Da Dao Jin, the big way is extremely simple. So why then don't we do it? Certainly 50% of you already know everything I've said here today. Why then don't we apply what we know if you do know it? And the answer is, ding, ding, ding. The negative information on our field doesn't want us to apply it. It will make the phone ring, and then we'll look back and take our attention away from that negative thing. Or we'll default to a way of covering it up, which could be your phone. You might say, I'm having a negative thought. Let me cover it up by putting my head in front of the TV. I'm having a negative thought. Let me cover it up by looking at my phone and looking at something stupid on social media. I'm having a negative thought. Let me cover it up by, eating more, right? We, if you take a look at our ways of covering these up, it's often because we are not empowered with common sense things that we can do to help us to feel better. So it's really important to not only catch yourself with these negative thoughts and not only see that it's a soul trying to serve you and not only do a forgiveness practice, but see when you don't default into a forgiveness practice. See when you instead default into an old pattern of ignoring or covering it up. Because very few people want to have it incessantly keep coming in. They usually have some very good patterns for ignoring it or covering it. Pay attention to that. There's so much available to us when it comes to the wisdom of the Tao that we can apply in very simple ways. Now, this here is the back of a book. This particular book is called Miracle Soul Healer with my teacher, Master Sha. And this calligraphy is called Ling Guang. Ling means soul, Guang means light, soul light. Now, a Tao calligraphy, in case you're new and do not know anything about this, is a source art. Dr. Master Sha is one of the most profound healers on the planet today, probably the most world renowned. And he's only one person, and there's 8 billion of us. So he wants to make available to humanity different ways we can facilitate faster healing and rejuvenation. And this is why he's placed his calligraphies in the last 8 years in his books. And you can go to them and purchase one of his books and access a calligraphy like this. I'm going to use this now to bless all of you, and I want you to measure your discomfort. Doesn't matter if you're listening on podcast or on video, measure any discomfort you have around negativity. Okay? What happened in your world today that was negative? Probably at least one thing, right? And how is it rubbing you hard? Is that why you came in here today? Because you just want it to go away? Is it a 2? Is it a 5? Is it a 10? Or is it out on a 10 scale? 10 is excruciating. I'm ready to rip it out of my brain. And, obviously 0, there's nothing there. Okay? Choose what level of stress conditions you might have. It's probably come down just since you've been in this session with me. But let's go ahead and do a healing. Here's how you do it. Everything has a soul. So this source calligraphy has a soul also. It's a portal. It acts as a portal of healing from the source. So when I connect, I'm in essence saying, I love you, I appreciate you, and all of the healing that has been infused into you, as I connect with you and trace, could you please bless all of those that are listening at this time? Okay, so make a request, and then I will connect. And dear the soul of this Ling Guang, source calligraphy, soul light, source calligraphy, all of the frequency and blessings transmitted within. I love you. I'm deeply grateful for your unconditional service. As I trace you, could you please bless everyone that listens to this podcast for their request? Thank you. Blessings start. You'll also hear me chant Ling Guang or soul light. And that's because of the 6-power technique where we're using body power, which is my tracing for you right now, sound power, which is chanting a mantra, in this case, soul light, mind power, which is visualizing light coming to your area of request. So close your eyes, and if it's a not non-physical request, such as a mind-based issue or a negativity, see the light coming into your heart center. Our mind blockages are not in our brain, they're in our heart center. So see light come into your heart center. We've already connected to the level of soul. That's the 4th power. The 5th power is breathing, so simply breathe very naturally. And the 6th power in this 6-power technique is Tao calligraphy, or writing power. And that's what I am tracing right now. It's actually very powerful, I have to say. This particular book is one that Master Sha increased the light in about 2 months ago. He raised the frequency and the light in this calligraphy. And I can tell you, it has definitely shifted. How do I know? Well, my third eye can see it, but also my teeth ache a little bit, usually in the front of my teeth. They only ache, and I do mean only ache. It's not bad, just noticeable. When I am in a high frequency field. So receive. Source light, 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 soul 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 light. Ling Guang, Source Calligraphy, blesses and heals everyone's request. Ling Guang, Source Calligraphy, blesses and heals everyone's request. Ling Guang, Source Calligraphy, blesses and heals everyone's request. Ling Guang, Source Calligraphy, blesses and heals everyone's request. Ling Guang, Source Calligraphy, blesses and heals everyone's request. Ling Guang, Source Calligraphy, blesses and heals everyone's request. 30 more seconds. Ling Guang, Source Calligraphy, blesses and heals everyone's request. Ling Guang, Source Calligraphy, blesses and heals everyone's request. Ha, ha, ha. Thank you, thank you, thank you. How is a Mandarin Chinese word that means perfect, complete, get well. It means many things. And we say thank you 3 times in honor and respect for the blessings. So check in with yourself. Maybe you noticed a difference in this short, it's about a 4 or 5 minute blessing. I can tell you it was very powerful, and it's highly likely you will have noticed something. Now, for those of you who would like to learn more about Tao Healing, maybe you're just new to it for the first time, come to my website, wellspringoflight.com. There's many different ways you can receive free healing and free wisdom, and there are ways in which you can receive healing for any physical, emotional, mental problem, even relationship problems. There's solutions for all that, because ultimately the Da Dao Zhizhen, the big way is extremely simple. Ultimately, every suffering you have and every success you have is because of the positive or negative thoughts, words, and actions that you've had in this and all lifetimes. So be more responsible for your current thoughts, words, and actions moving forward, because that will produce a better tomorrow. And be conscious and responsible for your present moment that you might not be enjoying by applying the Tao calligraphy and the forgiveness practice in the moment. catch that negative thought as quickly as you can and recognize its soul is trying to serve you. Recognize there's an opportunity to release that negativity from your field by offering forgiveness and asking forgiveness. And do it as many times as it takes. You might have to do it for 2 or 3 months until that negativity is gone. But isn't that better than dealing with it for decades? The choice is yours. The wisdom will not change, but how you apply the wisdom, when you apply the wisdom, is up to you. You can become much happier, much healthier, much faster when you apply these Tao healing techniques. If you have not already subscribed to my podcast, make sure you do so. The link is in the chat. And make sure you share this with family, friends, people you care about. I'm here to serve you. I have ongoing programs, practices, memberships, and more. Learn more at my website, wellspringoflight.com. Until then, I look forward to seeing you. Have an awesome day, everyone. Bye-bye.